Welcome back. I am John P. Today we are going to be talking about 3 of my personal watches that I truly can just not take off of my wrist. These are going to be 3 watches that I just love for whatever reason, and I'm going to be sharing with you some of the reasons, but for whatever reason overall, I just can't seem to let any of these watches go. As you know, I have Delray Watch with my business partner Federico from Federico Talks Watches, and I'm very fortunate to be able to kind of scratch my itch as a collector in that way. And so when something comes in my personal collection, oftentimes if someone out there from YouTube or Delray Watch just has to have it, and they want it more than me, I don't mind selling it to them in that way. I just don't really seem to hoard watches personally. But the 3 watches I'm going to share with you in just a minute, actually, I have not been able to get rid of. Guys, please do not forget to check out delraywatch.com as well as my Instagram, TheRealJohnP. So the first watch that I'd like to share with you is actually my new daily wear. This is going to be an Omega Seamaster Aquaterra 38.5 Good Planet Edition in titanium. Now, if you watch this channel, you know that I was wearing a Rolex Oyster Perpetual 39 Red Grape for a very long time as my everyday wear, but I thought I would change it up for the reasons. Make sure to catch that video where I explain it to you. But I moved on to this 38.5 Omega Seamaster Aquaterra, and I just love it. Now, this particular watch, I'm going to share with you a couple reasons why I really love it, but this is a limited edition of the Aquaterra, Seamaster Aquaterra 150M, specifically for the Good Planet Foundation. Now, the Good Planet Foundation is a non-governmental organization, an NGO that really is trying to, make the world a better place, clean things up, and it's in that kind of sphere, right? Save the world type of mentality. But Omega partners with them among other similar organizations, and a portion of the proceeds from every watch sale of this watch, as well as the other Good Planet watches, went to that foundation from Omega. Now, why I like this first is its titanium. The grade 5 titanium is just so light. I put this on my wrist, and for being a sport watch, or a watch that looks pretty much like a stainless steel sport watch, it's just so light. Sometimes I forget that I'm wearing it because I'm used to that Rolex OP, which is a heavier watch in the 39, especially for me. I have a smaller wrist, so I love the grade 5 titanium. It's really nice. I also like the 60-hour power reserve. Now, it's not an amazing power reserve, but it's more than sufficient for me in considering that it has a pretty decently decorated Omega caliber 8500 coaxial movement. I like it. It works for me, and this is something I can throw on my wrist and really forget about it, not have to worry about complications or scratching it or dinging it. I really like that. And not to mention, the dial is beautiful. It's got that very almost matte, but somehow immersive white lacquer dial with beautifully blue hued hands, which I really love and enjoy. The contrast, it's fun, and the light, it just hits it in a certain way. What do you think about this? Please leave that in the comments below. Now we'll pop this back on my wrist where it belongs, and actually we'll grab the next one. The next watch is going to be a Breguet Classique. Yes, a Breguet Classique in yellow gold, but it's not any old Breguet Classique. This is going to be a manually wound, so a hand wind movement Breguet Classique, but it's a little bit of an older model, right? It's from, either the late 90s or early 2000s, in that era. I don't have the papers, but what makes this particular watch special is that it's Tiffany signed. So it's Tiffany retailed. There's really not many of these floating around. And when I saw this watch, this was before the Tiffany craze, right? This was before the Tiffany watches really took off in price. I put this in my collection, and I think, I got such a great deal on it because it is 32, 33 millimeters, depending on how you measure it. Now, for me, once again, what I love about this watch, aside from how simple it is, how timeless, how classic, right? A Breguet from today looks like a Breguet from this era, looks like a Breguet from 80 years ago, something like that, right? Breguet just does it right. They haven't changed a lot over time with their dress watches, including the Classique. That's the namesake. That's kind of what it means, right? It's classic, but it's so light. Once again, this tiny ultra thin manual wind movement, 32 millimeters. It's gold, but it's light. I love it. I forget that I'm even wearing it sometimes, which is ironic. I just love it. What do you guys think about this watch? Please leave that in the comments below as well. And lastly, I'd like to share with you a very cool watch. This is going to be a Gerald Genta watch. Now, I'm sure many of you, if not most, are familiar, but if perhaps you're not, Gerald Genta has designed so many of the classic watches out there, the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak, many of the Patek Philippe sporting watches that we know, originated from his designs. He also designed the Omega Constellation, one of the versions of the Omega Constellation, and other watches, including his own line, or one of his own lines, and this is the Gerald Genta line. This particular watch is the Fantasy Retro, and what's cool, there's two cool things about this watch. One, it's a Disney Mickey Mouse watch, so it's kind of like a pop culture, pop icon kind of a thing, which just makes it special and unique for that reason. There were not a lot of these produced, and mostly for specific markets in the world. But also what's cool about this is it has a complication, right? An interesting complication. This is going to have a jump hour and a retrograde. So if you're not familiar, the jump hour is essentially, you can see at the 6 o'clock, the hour is going to be jumping when it moves over. And the retrograde minutes is going to be the non-circular or the non-360 degrees movement, keeping track of here the minutes. So the hand will actually pop back to the 0 once it hits that 60 and provide for that retrograde complication. I think this watch is so cool. And I wear this watch typically when I know someone has already seen all the Rolex, someone has seen all the Omega watches and everything else. The likelihood of a watch geek seeing this watch in the flesh is so low. And so that's why, even recently I wore this watch to a lunch with some friends, and there were some people there, and I handed it to them, and they were like, wow, I've never seen this. And, I could wear a Daytona, I could wear, a heavy hitter piece, an Audemars Piguet Royal Oak, but they've seen the watch, right? Because there's a lot of them. And so typically, I like showing up to like a watch kind of meetup thing, wearing something like this, because it's something interesting. They may not get the experience any other way. But also for non-watch collector people, I love when people think this is something out of like a Cracker Jack box. I don't even know if they make that stuff anymore, but you know what I mean? It's kind of looks like a trinket, right? Like, what's a Gerald Genta? Oh, it's the Mickey Mouse watch. People don't realize these are, actually really finely made Swiss watches with interesting complications that truly are somewhat of a marvel in terms of horology. Sure, there's a module inside. Let's not pretend that this is an entirely produced in-house watch, but you get the picture. It's something unique and interesting, and it's more than just that, Mickey Mouse kind of a watch. It's a little bit of both worlds, and I kind of like that clash. But what do you guys think about not only these watches, but also, is there anything interesting that you have in your collection that you just cannot let go, or you don't want to? I would love to see it and hear it in the comments below. Please do not forget to check out DelrayWatch.com, where we just got in some crazy watches at really great prices, including a show part, Alpine Eagle. And also you can find me on Instagram, The Real John P. Thanks, guys. You've been chatting with John P.